the horse is reflecting the human's mental and emotional state. And so many times we are thinking that on the outside we are behaving in a calm manner, meaning we're not running around, we're not yelling and screaming, we're not doing obviously big and dramatic behaviors, and yet our horse is still responding to us a bit dramatically or a bit defensively, or not really wanting to be with us as far as in close proximity. And, I suggest to people that this can be kind of one of those mild feedback moments where you can stop and say, okay, even though on the outside I might not be projecting a crazy amount of energy or something that should be driving my horse away, perhaps there's something going on in my mind and my emotions that I'm unaware of that my horse is feeling, and he's reflecting back in his own behaviors of keeping some space or keeping some distance. So, as I've mentioned before, if you have the opportunity to go and spend time with your horse, even if you don't have the opportunity to go spend time with your horse, you can practice starting to become aware of your thoughts and how to separate those thoughts in a way that when you go to actually arrive in person with your horse, you have already prepared yourself to be mentally present to only what is happening in the moment. And this is much easier said than done. So again, with more time on your hands nowadays, it might be a great time to practice learning how fast your mind might become distracted, or that as you have a distracting thought, that there is an emotional trigger in how you respond to it, and then a physical unintentional response also. So I will tell people often the ride, even if you're not riding, but time spent with your horse begins when you think about going for a ride. So that means everything you have to do to get ready at your house, or walk out to the pasture, or get the halter, or whatever it is that you have to do that whole time leading up until the moment before you're standing in front of wherever your horse is at, you need to be mentally letting go of the thoughts that are distracting, stressful, and have nothing to do with your horse. That doesn't mean you forget about life. That doesn't mean you ignore other things that are happening, but you need to have the ability to separate how you are responding to other events in life from what you are presenting to when you are standing in front of your horse. And people aren't always aware of just how sensitive horses are. I have found within about 30 seconds or less, the horse has made an assessment of where your mind and emotions are. So you need to be aware that even though many times with horses, people initially get involved because they're looking for a distraction from the rest of their life, instead of thinking of it as a distraction or a way to get away from everything and spend times with our horse, think of it as an opportunity to practice separating whatever else is happening in your life from your horse time. And if you can think of it in terms of separating, that doesn't mean you're avoiding other things in life, but it also does not mean that you are unintentionally bringing distraction, emotional frustrations, or roller coaster emotions, or any of those sort of things into the conversation that you are starting to have during your horse time. And this goes for whether you're handling your horse from the ground or riding in the saddle. It doesn't matter. They can read and feel your mind, your emotions immediately. Okay? And so what happens is, if you can for a moment think about times when you're stressed, or maybe of recent times when you've been more concerned, more unsure, any of the emotions that might be going through your mind, okay? And I want you to do a body awareness check. So start in your own body and notice just first in your breath. Many times in many different sports, athletics, mind clearing meditations, yoga, all these different practices in life, we all wind up saying the same thing, that it comes back to your breath. And the same goes for when you're with your horse. So start to become aware as if when you have that mental trigger and that emotional response, notice first thing your breath. Are you holding your breath? Are you breathing in consistently? Are you taking kind of short, shallow, rapid breathing? Just notice what your behavior is. And again, none of this is to critique yourself. It's just to become aware of perhaps behaviors that you do that you don't realize you're doing that are then affecting how you communicate with your horse. So from your breath, I want you to start to notice the muscles in your body. Are you holding a tension in your neck, in your shoulders, in between your shoulder blades, in your lower back? Notice down your arms if you wind up gripping or holding on to things with a certain tension and your forearms are kind of locked and braced if you're tight at your shoulders. Notice in your standing postures, are you locking up your knees? Are you standing unbalanced on your feet? Are you winding up walking in a way where you're kind of taking very short, rapid steps rather than, comfortable, more natural ones? These are just things to become aware of, because what happens is when we have a mental distraction or a stress and we have an emotional response where we aren't sure, we're concerned, we're fearful, we're defensive, we're, any of those sort of things that might be brewing in our mind, as we go to offer physical interaction with the horse, those mental and emotional feelings we are experiencing are going to influence the quality of how we physically communicate with the horse.